Good evening, dear audience of Conflict and Resilience Research Institute Canada. On behalf of the Institute, I welcome all of you all to one of the most important webinars that we have in our foreign interference series. And presumably this is one of our last webinars in 2024. And within this security environment, which is evolving rapidly around our country, I think you will find very interesting the discussion led by Mr. Michel Juno Katsuya, who is our invited guest today. The audience, before we begin, traditionally, we shall do treaty recognition. The Institute is located on the original lands of Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene people, and on the lands of Métis Nation. We all are treaty people, and we all are promise-bound to work together in the true spirit of truth and reconciliation. The audience, national security, the idea and the concept is quite broad. If you visit our country's Public Safety Canada's website, you'll find they have listed a series of items that considers to be within the purview of national security. For example, you will find anti-hate initiatives, bias, sensitivity, diversity, and national security and counterterrorism, and there is a long list of it, and within which, of course, foreign interference is one of these. The reason I'm saying that it is quite broad because each country has their own way of defining national security. In the US, they talk mostly about their national interest, and they connect their interest with national security. And given their resources and capability, they do consider their national interest globally. We don't do it in this way. Our national interest might encompass global issues, but mostly we consider locally. And this is one of the ideas that we are going to talk about today with one of the leading experts in Canada. So without further ado, it is my privilege to introduce our guest, Michel Juno Katsuya. He's a well-known Canadian expert, author, and commentator at home and abroad. Michel has gained recognition for his direct and practice-oriented approach to threat and security assessment. With more than 40 years of service in the fields of counterintelligence and security intelligence assessments, he served in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and subsequently in Canadian Security Intelligence Services as a senior manager and a field intelligence officer. Since returning to civilian life, he has served on missions in more than 50 countries where he has led various security projects. Michel did his postgrad studies in political philosophy and now teaches criminology at various universities. He is regularly requested as analyst commentator by various national and international media on public and national security issues. Michel is often requested to testify as an expert witness at various parliamentary and Senate committees on national security and intelligence, as well as in some court of justice. He has published books on intelligence and espionage activities in Canada, as well as being the author and host of a TV series on Historia about espionage cases in Canada. So as I promised, this will be a very interesting night. Just hang on, folks, and we'll listen to Michel. And before I let him speak, it is also a privilege to have with us Dr. Maria Cheung, Professor Emeritus, University of Manitoba. She is also our advisor, and she is actually the lead of our foreign interference series and also the book project that we are working on. So, dear audience, I will not hold you back further. Let me welcome Michel for his opening remarks, which might continue around 15 to 20 minutes. And following that, Maria and I would engage Michel in question and answer session. And audience, feel free to write your comments and questions because this is a unique opportunity to listen and engage with Mr. Michel. Michel, without further ado, floor is yours.
Well, thank you very, very much. This is such a warm welcome. I'm a little bit shy now to talk, but good evening, everybody. Very, very honored and very happy to be with you. yes, this topic is very dear to my heart because, as you share in the introduction, I worked my entire professional life in trying to protect my country, protect our society, try to understand also the various forces at play that comes into interactions or actions in our country and abroad. I enjoyed very much what you've mentioned about the notion of national security that often will englobe or will bring global issues for Canada, because that is actually something that I experienced myself when I was the chief of Asia Pacific at CSIS. I had a very small unit compared to my counterpart in the US, for example. We were working from Afghanistan all the way to North Korea, both in the field and in analytical capacities. And when we tried to do analysis of what was going on, I had basically 5 analysts who covered about 25 countries, when they had 25 analysts who covered one country. So the huge difference we found along the way is that our counterpart in the US knew exactly very detailed information about and minute information about very specific topic, but had a very loose understanding and no understanding of of a greater strategic perspective. So very operationally oriented, but not strategic oriented. And for us, because we had lack of resources, we had to fly at 30,000 feet and watch the entire region all at once, which allowed us to see much more what was coming up and keep our eyes on the horizon. And in that perspective, I would say that was quite enlightening for me to sort of realize that basically the CIA analysts have missed pretty much every historical event that were significant through the years, because they had their nose sucked to the tree rather than to step back and being capable to sort of see the entire forest. While us, we didn't have a choice. We had to look at and watch the entire forest. So it gave us a chance to be better armed, if I may say, to face growing issues. So we were capable, for example, to discover in the mid 90s the problem of foreign interference coming from the Chinese. Now, I'm specifically talking about the Chinese because I was chief of Asia Pacific, but we saw it. We had evidence and we talked about it. So that's why I was able to testify recently in front of a parliamentary committee and to state very openly that from Mr. Mulroney always to Mr. Trudeau today, every single prime minister have been informed about Chinese foreign interference. Every prime minister have been told, and they decided to either ignore it or use it for partisan or even their own advantage. Every single prime minister used it. It's not that they didn't know about. So yeah, we could throw some rocks at Mr. Trudeau and how slow he acted on Chinese foreign interference. The Hug Commission have revealed quite a lot of embarrassing secrets for the government, but he's not unique. He's not special in that perspective, because from Mr. Mulroney to all the way from him to him, we've seen this. Quite frustrating, I must tell you. Quite frustrating to be the one carrying the message and seeing yourself being shut down because you're the bearer of bad news, and they didn't want you to sort of spill the beans. And of course, being within CSIS, I couldn't talk publicly. I couldn't go to the public. I couldn't reveal those things. And that's probably led to one of my decision to retire early and to be capable to gain my free speech this way. Because I continue my research, I continue my work, I continue my, I would say, my life as an activist to a certain extent, being in the know-how of how national security works, and and being offended, being frustrated to see how much the political power we're using it or not using it, basically, which brings us to talk maybe about what's currently happening. Um, Canada is in severe national security crisis as we speak. I think the Hug Commission reveal how much the prime ministers and the prime minister's office and the advisors of the prime ministers have been informed, were well informed and told on time what was going on, but they purposely ignored or used it the way they saw fit for their own political benefits, rather than to put national security or national interests ahead of their personal interests. And that is quite alarming. And the we could have a very, very long list and spend the entire hour just enumerating the problems that came out from the Hug commissions, which were well known by the national security community, but I've now surfaced, which I think it's great. And if anything at all, I would sort of give a medal to the whistleblower, excuse me, to the whistleblower that gave us those documents. Sorry for this, because we wouldn't be talking about it if finally somebody was tired and frustrated and decided to give some documents to the media. It is a cardinal sin for the secret agencies when you have somebody that gives secret documents like this. But at this point, I think it's really the concept of moral over ethic. It was not an ethical things to do, because basically there's a breach of contract right here. You promised to protect those information, and now you gave them away to the media, but not to gain personal benefit out of it, other than as an patriotic person, you sort of bring the country, or give a chance to the country to fix a problem that has been going on for decades, not only a few years or a short period of time. No, decades, literally. I'm aware of the Chinese foreign interference since mid-1990. When I'm the first to discover that the Chinese embassy was giving money to both the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party. But they shut us down. They destroy our report. They destroy my unit. They sent everybody in every corner of the world, rather than to listen to what we had to say. And we had to wait until this whistleblower came out. Now, coming back to the issue of the national security crisis, I think we definitely need to pay much more attention of what's going on. It's kind of interesting. I'm probably one of the first guy that would be on the front line to critique Mr. Trump, but I must say that he did a smoking coup when he threatened Mr. Trudeau and Canada to receive 25% surtax on Canadian goods going to the U.S. Within 2 hours, Mr. Trudeau was on the phone talking to Mr. Trump. Within a week, he was having dinner with him and with his close advisors. Promised to buy drones for the RCMP to increase protection at the border. And then came out also the policy about the Great North that Madame Joly and Mr. Blair talked about. Great billions of investment to protect the North and everything. Mr. Trump succeeded in having Mr. Trudeau moving when it doesn't have in his DNA to move that fast. So I was very, very impressed and surprised and delighted, because we need to rethink, definitely. One of the big problem, well, it started with the creation of CSIS. Right from the get-go, the way CSIS was created and the reason why CSIS was created, it was to try to protect the decision of Mr. Trudeau's father because of the wrongdoing of the RCMP in the 70s. And right there is almost a class to give you on the historical events and the chronology and why and the power at play at that period of time. But CSIS was created with a law, and the law was very, very specific. CSIS could not speak to anybody except the Minister of Public Safety eventually, which was a Solicitor General originally, but the Public Safety Minister and the Prime Minister. That's it. That's all. Couldn't talk to the province, couldn't talk to other departments, couldn't talk to anybody. And that has been our great weakness of having the knowledge, but not being able to share it with everybody. And to give you an example of how other countries are doing, the MI6 and the MI5 once a year or every second years organize a national conference to invite all the business leaders to listen about the threat that they have discovered and the way to protect themselves. They inform the general public. When CSIS wanted to go and talk to companies, the old CIRC, which was the Security and Intelligence Review Committee that was created at the same time CSIS was created, squirreled the CSIS and told them that they were not allowed to do that. The law says that you can only speak. Well, it came out during the Hague Commission that CSIS could not speak to anybody. But even if, when they got the green light to talk to anybody, to the Mr. Trudeau in June 2023 offered to the premier of all the provinces the possibility to receive a special briefing from CSIS. Well, only one premier accepted, was the premier of BC. All the others refused. Now, I can understand the dynamic between, the tug of war that exists between the provinces and the federal government. But when it comes to national security, be a little bit wiser, guys, because, just for an example, one of the problems that we have in Canada is that we're a playground for international spy who comes and steal our intellectual property big time. They come into universities in particular because the universities are ill-prepared to receive and to protect themselves. Well, collectively, annually, provinces and federal government invest about $15 billion that they give in grant and money for research and stuff like that. And we don't protect ourselves. And we don't sort of warn people enough about the kind of stolen technology, that the kind of thefts that are taking place. In 2001, there was a reshuffle of the old National Security Act, the National Secret Act, to create the Information Security Act. And there's a few articles only that says basically, don't steal our intelligence, don't steal our intellectual property because we don't like it. And nobody has ever been charged except recently, when finally a very sort of dynamic unit of the RCMP in Montreal, and probably the most dynamic one, arrested a Chinese man who was working for Hydro-Québec in the R&D division on the battery field. A man that came to Canada who doesn't speak French, doesn't speak English, but was part of the deal that the premier at that time, Mr. Forgot his name, anyway, signed with the Chinese, that there would be an exchange of scientific and knowledge. So this guy came to work with Hydro-Québec and doesn't even speak the language. Well, he was caught downloading tons and tons and tons and tons of information. Now he's currently standing trial for espionage and stealing information. First trial in Canada about spying of that nature. So, and we have to wait until 2022 before he get charged. It's like, it's amazing. When in the US, at the end of the Cold War in 1990, we moved from a military confrontation to an economic confrontation. Very rapidly, other nations understood that national economy and the healthy national economy was linked to national security. So the US in 1996 adopted and passed a law called the Economic Espionage Act. Can I be more clear? Economic Espionage Act. Since once a month, at least, they have an arrest and they have people charged and everything, because there is a lot of things. Well, back in 1995, I was the chief of Asia Pacific, and I asked one of my analysts to try to quantify why Canada was losing so much information, because I could see at CSIS, people were coming and crying on our shoulders. They don't go to the press, they don't go to their shareholders, but they tell us because they hope that we can maybe help them to get their information back. And we were capable to quantify that we were losing an average of 10 to 12 billion dollar per year back in 1995. Okay, that's a big number, 10 to 12 billion, but how big? So we wanted to compare ourselves. We went to the US and we asked our counterparts, how much do you think you're losing per year? At that time, the FBI estimated about $25 billion per year. Okay, twice as much as us. But wait a minute, you're 10 times bigger than us. That means ratio-wise, I'm losing 5 times more. So the next question was, why? Why am I losing more? Why am I privileged in having all the spy activities taking place? And we discovered many things. Canada is a knowledge-based society. Canada is strategically located between, the US, Russia. It's doing business with Asia, with Europe. Not only do we have our own secret, we have also the secret of our friends, because we're sitting at all the major tables like the NATO, the NORAD. We're sitting with G7, Five Eyes. So we have to protect also our friends' secrets, and we have, a lot to offer. And the law was poor. We had poor protection from the law. So it made us a very fertile ground for people to come and spy. Plus, we give access to a lot of our friends. Canada is a nice entry doors to the US and other countries. So to my point of view, nobody have done any more research about to quantify if there was an evolution since 1995. But in 2015, the FBI director testified in front of Senate committee in the US and evaluated at that time that the US was losing $250 billion per year. So an increase by 10 since 1995. I don't think it is a stretch for us to estimate that our evolutions probably went the same way, because we're a very similar society. So if we go with this, we would be losing about 110, 120 billion dollar per year in intellectual property and various form of contract. It's a lot of competitivity. It's a lot of economic power. And even if you cut it by half, by 50 billion, can we afford to lose that much? And when do we talk about spy activities? When do we talk about foreign interference other than now in the last few years? And then when I turn and watch my political leader, hoping to see some ray of enlightenment into them, well, I see somebody like Mr. Poilievre who refused to take his security clearance in order to not read the report, pretexting that the government might arrest him or gag him. What the hell are you talking about? And you're pretending to be my next prime minister, and you don't even know if your political party is clean because you don't want to read a report that will tell you. Because, by the way, we know who is not clean in your political party. It's just that we cannot say it publicly, but you could take action. This is this kind of bouffonnerie. This is this kind of clown business that the national security specialists are looking at and are saying, enough is enough. Enough is enough. So if we want to be serious about fixing our national security, first of all, we have to rethink how we use national security. I understand we need to keep certain things secret, but I'm all for transparency as much as possible. I'm all for sharing as much as possible. I'm definitely in favor of accountability. It's not because you have a carte blanche for being national security that you can do anything, everything, and hide everything. Definitely the provinces need to be on board. Definitely the provinces, and particularly the premier, needs to have their advisors that will be talking to CSIS and other instances and being capable to receive briefing, then translate that back to the premier, so the right policy and the right protection can be given. Because now we're talking about espionage, we're talking about foreign interference, but there's other form of threat also. There's white supremacists, the right-wing movement, extremism of all sort of things. And with the social media, there's a polarization that exists now within society, where you've got very small group that polarize certain issues, and we have seen it. We have seen the self-radicalization that they are taking place in the privacy of a room or a basement. People that simply sort of decide to take matter in their own hands, and they're not all the time ideological in terms of political view or religious view. The dude that went in Toronto and used his truck to kill women on the sidewalk because he hates women, well, that took place with the Polytechnique back in 1986. It's not new. There's nothing new under the sun, but we need to inform each other. We need to be aware of what's going on. We definitely needs to talk more about it. And I'm extremely thankful to the whistleblower that brought the documents out to the media. I'm thankful to the media that are our last line of defense and will remain our last line of defense, because we need them to be capable to challenge and to ask for accountability. Definitely more transparency, and we need definitely to educate our political elite, because they will be tempted constantly. There's specialists, trained intelligence officer that will definitely be there to manipulate them. So anyway, I threw everything today a little bit like in the form of a bouillabaisse for you. It's a little bit of everything, but I'm welcoming the exchange and question.
Thank you so much. The audience, did I not tell you that you will find it very interesting once Michel speaks, and that goes along with his bio, why people and why he's much sought after personality in the area of intelligence. Folks, now we are going to engage Michel in sort of a dialogue, and I would like to invite Professor Maria Chung first to have initial question, and then I'll jump in.
Thank you, Michelle. It's our honor to have you tonight, to be with us, to share your knowledge, your wisdom. I read your deputation in 2014 when you were giving it at the Toronto School Board.
Oh, yes.
And
I got the Confucius Institute. Yes.
And it was mind-blowing. I didn't realize the depth of all the proxy organizations that are actually in Canada who are doing so much for the PRC. So can you tell us, as long as you know, approximately how many proxy organizations are there in Canada, and how do you know that they are proxy organizations?
Because they tell us most of the time. They're very, Chinese people like their Kodak moment. They like the pictures. And not necessarily in the Canadian media, but definitely in the Chinese media. And it's part of the propaganda. It's part of the control of the people that they exercise by publishing leaders of various organizations that will be posing with United Front Work Department's people in particular. The United Front Work Department, for everybody else, it's one of the 5 intelligence organizations in China, probably one of the most powerful one to a certain extent, powerful in terms of its size, its efficiency, in insidious work that they do with various organization, and they basically use, and they write it in their own literature, they use soft power to manipulate the mind. The power of influence have been written by the Chinese 2,000 years ago. You know the expression, they wrote the book? Well, in this case, they wrote the book. And it's Sun Tzu, with The Art of War. That excellent book that's still very, very, very much appropriate today. But it shows the power to be capable to manipulate people and bring people to basically act on your behalf or in your interest without even sometimes their own knowledge. Now, that is extremely important for these days, because we're entering an era where now we're talking about cognitive warfare, where the mind is manipulated. And what is cognitive warfare? It's basically the capability to influence you by feeding you the wrong information or information that has been manipulated in order to neutralize your critical sense. So you're not capable to have the right information, to analyze it properly, to come to the right conclusion, and therefore act accordingly. If I'm capable to manipulate what I'm giving you, I will misguide you. A very easy example, it's just like if you want to go to a certain destination and I tell you how to get there, but it will take you 3 hours more because I'm giving you the wrong direction. I know exactly what I'm doing, but I'm intentionally giving you the wrong direction. You don't know better, so you will follow my instruction. You will go, but you will take 3 hours more than expected. And that's what cognitive warfare is about, to a certain extent. I think this is a very problematic situation. But to come back to your question, I apologize, I derailed there. There is currently about CSIS estimate that there's approximately 60 to 70% of all the Chinese diplomats in Canada that are actually spies. They're not diplomats. They are walking around with their diplomatic immunity, but they are actually spying. We have a trade deficit with China, and they have proportionally more diplomats than the U.S., with who we have 80% of our economy linked. Like this is a nonsense. And that nonsense have been denounced and been told to Foreign Affairs, or Global Affairs, if you want. Never liked that name. And I think that Global Affairs have demonstrated, particularly with the Hague Commission, that they have been part of the problem, not part of the solution. Now, so that is another place where we need to do some cleanup, definitely in that department, to my point of view. So in terms of being capable to take over certain organization, I would say easily, and I'm conservative here, 90% of all the Chinese organizations in Canada are under the control of the CCP. 90%. Very, very few, and the one that I would say that are very openly anti-CCP might not be under the control of the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. But even with some, I'm sure they are infiltrated. I'm sure there is some people. So in terms of numbers of people and a spy operating in Canada on behalf, directly knowing that they are working on directly on behalf of the Chinese government, both trained intelligence officer and co-optee, so people that will become agent of influence, easily over 1,000 easily. And that's probably a conservative number, because because the Chinese government have been very, very good in bringing people to work for them in their so-called best interests. They have so many different ways to do it, from blackmail to pressuring the family back in China, to simply try to bring them to work because it's going to be lucrative.
Hmm. Wow. So that's what you said is national crisis, eh?
Oh, it is. It is. We have to wake up. We have to wake up, and we have to be a little bit more intelligent. It's not a question of changing our country into a state police or police state. Sorry, it's not. it's not a question of seeing everybody that doesn't look like me being a spy or anything like this. No, it's a question of working together in the realization of a space, a society with certain ideals. I'm very Kantian in this in this perspective. I know we'll never have a perfect world, but I can have the ideal world as much as possible if we all work together. And for that, I need to be aware of how much influence have been exercised on us, and awareness is the only way to sort of counter the element, and that's why it's so important to talk about it. Until we start talking about foreign interference in the fall of 2022, when did you hear about national security issues in the media? It was a rare occasions. It was really, really, really rare. Since a lot came out. The issues in Winnipeg with the lab, and now that the government drag its feet for a long period of time. Why the government drag its feet for a long period of time? Well, because the knowledge that this lady transferred to China probably caused the COVID internationally, because of what she had discovered. And by the way, she's discovered it with money that we gave to her for her research and everything. So the naivety is incredible, And so somewhere, somehow, we need to develop, for lack of a better word, a new business model, a new business culture that is capable to recognize and to promote within our society how much we have it here. That is so good. And to try to protect this. Currently, it's very individuals' actions that succeed in eroding, in creating a problems in our society. It's just like this drop of water. Well, every drop of water is a single individual who cooperate with the CCP, who cooperate with Russia, who cooperate with Iran or with another foreign country. And by the way, there are some allies in that are causing problem right here as well. So let's not see all the time the same villain. Yes, the American, the French, the Brits, the Israel, all right there as well on the top list of foreign interference. And India as well.
Yes.
Let's not forget.
Long on the list.
Oh, it's a long list. It's a very long list.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria. So I was just about to ask you, Michel, about India, because India joined this, elite club of foreign interfering countries very recently, publicly, I would say. So given your long experience in this sector, did you see such interference in the past from Indian government to any extent? And especially, I would request you to speak a few words about the 1985-86 Air India bombing and the terrorism and Khalistan movement. So I'm just giving you a context. So I'll let you speak. So tell our audience, what do you see with regards to Indian interference and the claim of Trudeau government to a very magnificent amount very recently, and the expulsion of diplomats?
Yeah. Unfortunately, since Air India and even a little bit before, India has been doing foreign interference in Canada. We have to return to 1984 with the Blue Star operation against the Sikhs temple. It really, really created a profound injury or a profound trauma to the Sikh community. Of course, some individuals, it was to be expected, was going to seek revenge. They did it in 1985, June 1985, with Air India. 329 people perished because of this. And from the get-go, the Indian government had agents in Canada to try to sort of infiltrate and manipulate the Sikh community and the Indo-Canadian community, the Indo-Canadian. We were aware of it. We were aware of it, and Canada chose to speak privately with the Indian diplomats and the Indian ambassador, well, the High Commissioner, spoke sometimes directly with the government back in India and said, "Come on, guys, let us do our job. This you're not allowed to do this and everything." But what we've seen is a constant increase through the years. Everybody know or should know about the fiasco that the RCMP and CSIS created with the Air India investigation that only infuriated the Indian government, unfortunately, because when CSIS was created, Friday night, I was an RCMP officer. Monday morning, I was a CSIS officer. They literally took 3,000 of us and moved us to create CSIS overnight, and we didn't have a choice. We were already national security investigators. And there was a rift between the two organizations, a pissing contest, literally, between the two organizations for a long period of time. And that was to the detrimental of the investigation, because Air India took place 11 months after the creation of CSIS. So that's something that dragged for a long period of time. But moving forward, what we have seen is, and I'm not the only one saying that, I think all international observers of India have been noticing that the government of Mr. Modi has been moving towards a very nationalist, pseudo-religious inclination, far right, much more than before. And he kept himself in power by nourishing and feeding that nationalist sentiment within the Hindu community, particularly. Unavoidably, if you're not an Hindu, if you're from a Sikh community or the Muslim community, etc., that will sort of expose you as a possible victims or threat to the government. The government did not see that we were acting enough. We have to understand that Canada, outside of India, has the largest Sikh community in the world. It brings a focus, it bring density and intensity into our country. This is what we call a homeland issue. We're not part of we have not created that tension, but the tension between the Sikh community and the Hindu community has been for a long period of time, way before Air India. Excuse me, the tension has been there for a long period of time. And the concept of creating a Khalistan has been there also many years before Air India. But of course, it was revived very much with the Blue Star operation, with Air India, and all the repression that took place. I'm not taking side here. I'm not saying who's the best, who's the worst, and stuff like that. Extremists of any form are the guys that I investigated. For me, extremism doesn't have its place. But I've studied violence. I've studied human beings as an investigator, as an academic all my life. And, in every security cases, there's always a common denominator, a human being. You try to understand the human beings, you try to understand how they go, and you will realize that you can understand. Terrorism comes from grievance. Terrorism comes from somebody who feel that unjust treatment has been done on them. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, but that's how they feel. And they try to explain or to say or to expose it. Nobody listened to it. Well, anybody who have raised kids, who got kids on their own, I'm telling you, at one point, you raised terrorists. Because anybody who had kids between the age of 2 to 4, 5, they're little terrorists. We just succeeded in sort of convincing them to sort of be a little bit nicer. But a kid that throw a tantrum in the middle of a grocery store, that's terrorism for you. And But human beings thinks like this. I'm going to try to tell you about something that is not fair. You're not paying attention. I'm going to speak louder. You're not paying attention. I'm going to poke you. You're not paying attention. I'm going to break something because now you're going to listen. Same thing is happening with terrorism. And unfortunately, somewhere, somehow, it went down that road and went so bad that now it's because somebody didn't do their job at the beginning. If a kid turns bad, it's because the parents were not there to listen. I'm not saying that you have to agree and to treat them like king, but you have to listen at least. Nobody listened at the terrorists at the beginning, or at least the people who were feeling victimized by something. Therefore, they turn into terrorism, which is a form of communication, for lack of a better word. So I'm simplifying here things very, very, very much, but we definitely know that the Indian government have been sending agents, have been provoking tension within the community, have been responsible for murder, for arson, for all sort of criminal activities. They've been using also organized crime. They're not the only country doing so. Many other countries are using organized crime. The Chinese are using the triads. Iran currently use the Hell Angels to try to sort of assassinate some people. So we're seeing organized crime being involved and used here, and India has gone into a very, very bad slope for many years now, and the Modi government is part of the problem, not part of the solutions. And Canada is not alone, because all we know is that the US arrested also some people, even charged a former Indian intelligence officer who was working in the office of Mr. Modi and ordered those murder to take place. India is currently suspected, according to some respectful media, to have killed over 20 people worldwide, the vast majority in Pakistan. So definitely there is a sort of a policy of executing people now and eliminating people that they perceive as being wrong. And and I'll finish on this point. Even the Interpol have warned India to stop abusing the notion of red notice and blue notice. The red notice is usually when you have a warrant for somebody and it's distributed among all the members of the Interpol, and technically Interpol members will arrest somebody that has a red notice. But there's also a blue notice. The blue notice is general information of people of interest. In both cases, the red and the blue, India have been abusing them, and the Interpol has warned them several times. And India is not the only one. There's other countries that are using that. And basically, pretty much every country that has a dictatorship of a form or another.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Dr. Maria, go ahead with the next question.
Yeah, I have lots of questions. What you raised has been so interesting. What about the C-70? How do you view about the C-70 Countering Foreign Interference Act? Does it improve the CSIS communication with
part of it? Yeah, part of it was that when C-70 came out, it's about time was my first reaction. And my second reaction, that only that, nothing more. You could go further. C-70, but we're coming from so far behind that C-70 could only do so much in a short period of time. I was asked to comment, to review, and to comment in front of parliamentary committee when they did the review of the C-70. There are some weaknesses, but there is some improvement. There is definitely some improvement in terms of allowing CSUS to communicate more information with more organizations and other political instances. So that's good. They will modify the criminal law and the Security Information Act in order to allow now the RCMP or any police department to investigate foreign interference. That's one of the problems that we had before. We didn't have a law that described what foreign interference is about, but we drag our feet for a long period of time. For example, Australia has adopted in 2017, 2018 a law that defined what foreign interference is about. The U.S. has it. The British has it. We're a common law country, so we should have been capable to adapt that very, very quickly. We drag our feet. And that is typical of what this current government is about. It's dragging its feet. It took 3 years to make a decision about Huawei when our allies were already banning them. Well, what is the result? Our allies are not trusting us anymore because we drag our feet so long. That's why I was saying earlier that Mr. Trump did a wonderful coup by forcing Trudeau to move, because it's not in his DNA to sort of act on national security. We rerouted money in different programs that the Liberal government was hoping to get vote, and particularly into immigration and status of women and stuff like that, and took money away from national security. What is the end result? Well, currently national defense is 15,000 soldiers below the minimum number they should be. Our equipment is obsolete. We need now to catch up on our commitment to NATO. There's not enough judge in the justice system because the federal government have not named enough judge. So therefore, every single day, there's hundreds of cases, criminal cases that are thrown out of court because of the Jordan the decision, sorry. And the RCMP is 20% below the minimum staffing that they should have. So our systems is broken. We need to fix that. But to come back to the C-70, one of the problems with the C-70 was definitely the arrival of the name of a commissioner. That's what the Liberal wanted, to name a commissioner responsible for foreign interference that will report directly to the Minister of Public Safety. Well, that's 4 quarters for a loony. That's exactly what's currently happening with CSIS. They report directly to the Minister of Public Safety, and look at the mess. You know, they told you, they gave you the information, you control the information, and you didn't act because there's a gatekeeper. That's exactly what is going to take place. My recommendation was, if you name a commissioner, the commissioner, just like the Auditor General, should report directly to the House of Commons. The accountability should go public to the House of Commons, and we find out exactly what's going on, and give them also police power so they can search, they can arrest, they can sort of lay charges in court. The other problem is with the registry. They created a foreign agent registry. It needs to be double notification. What is the double notification? Currently, we have lobbyists. A lobbyist registration. Well, the problem with our democracy is that it's just like a guy who wants to go out with a good-looking girl, and he's nice, he's charming, he's seducing, and after he gets what he gets, he forget about being nice and stuff like that. That's exactly what election is in Canada. They seduce you, they talk smoothly to you, they promise all sort of things. The moment the election takes place, the lobbyists come in and they have their field day for the next 4 or 5 years, because they will have their meeting with the ministers, they will have their private dinner, and they will run the show, basically, despite what they promised to us and everything. And that's what is the problem. It's because currently the registration for lobbyists is one way. You need to register and you report once in a while when you had meetings, but you report what you want to report. A double notification is different. The double notification is that the people who will have the meeting will have 10 days to report what kind of discussion they had with, for example, a minister. But the minister must report also. So, and now we will sort of compare to both statements. If they say something different, somebody is lying and everything. You know, it's like this old joke between the prof that we have is those four guys that goes to a party and they have an exam, but they didn't want to do an exam. So they go to see the prof and they say, you know, we couldn't come to the exam because we went to a party and we had a flat tire and we couldn't come on time. Oh, he said, this is really, really, really bad. It's okay. We'll redo the exam. And when they do the exam, there's only one question: which tire? And that's basically what this double notification will be about, is to make sure that the people tells the truth. But definitely there is some improvement, but we should still working at it, and it's not enough, to my point of view, that what C70 has done.
Thank you so much, Michel. Folks, as I also kind of visualized in the beginning of today's session, that time will fly. Exactly, we are in our clock 55 minutes talking to Michel, and I think we can go very long, but this is not the objective today. It's just to introduce Michel as a scholar, a researcher, and an expert in this area, so we can again invite Michel if he is available. But today we would like to close because this is how we organize our webinar, not over 1 hour. But at this point in time, I would like to go back to Michel and request him to say a few words as his final thoughts about foreign interference and what he sees in the future. But as a very curious person in the area of cognitive warfare, artificial intelligence, and disinformation, I would also humbly request Michel to say very briefly what is his thought, what is he teaching, because he teaches regularly in universities. Encompassing these 2-3 things, Michel, if you kindly say some of the concluding remarks that we had.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. Very, very quickly, December is a very important month because the Hague Commission technically is supposed to give her report at the end of the month. I wouldn't be surprised if they will ask for an extension, but definitely it will be very, very important to read this report. I'm not expecting necessarily that the report will be too harsh against the government, because Justice Hague was criticized right from the get-go from being a friend of the Trudeau family. So those commission usually don't try to sort of crucify the government. But a lot of very embarrassing information came out, and some information that should have justified the RCMP to step in and to investigate some criminal activities, like, for example, a member of the Liberal Party that warned directly Hang Dong that he was under investigation by CSIS. That is a breach of secrecy that should have been investigated, and somebody should have gone to prison for that. So we found out, for example, that Mr. Bill Blair took 54 days before signing a warrant against Michael Chang that is very, very important for the Liberal Party. These are sort of indicators that confirm that the Hague Commission touched some very sensitive nerves, and will be very, very interesting to see what is going on. But the commission was created with that time frame knowingly by Mr. Poilievre and Mr. Trudeau, knowing that we would go into election after Christmas. So a lot of that information will sort of be diluted and disappeared because of the election, because of the sort of little mud throwing that will take place with Mr. Poilievre and Mr. Trudeau and stuff like that. And we'll have to be very attentive and demanding that there is some changes and correction that needs to be done. But the system is protecting itself very, very, very much. And that is a great concern. That is part of my scholar research as well, how the system protect itself and defend itself. And that's one of my preoccupation. So for the months in the year to come, definitely these elements will be of a great concern. Actions speak louder than words. So after Bill C-70, I will be interested to see how CSIS implement the better communication and sharing of information with the public, how the RCMP will adapt and modify themselves as well. They should be investigating, now that we changed the law, more of foreign interference. Montreal unit of the RCMP, our national security, have been extremely proactive, been capable to reach out to the community, and it was a very successful operation. The question, why the other units, Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, are not doing the same? I'm wondering, because they prove that it was extremely profitable for their investigation. But one of the great challenge that collectively worldwide all democracy will be facing is definitely the cognitive warfare that is taking place. Now that sounds like, a big term and sounds like a doomsday, but there is definitely we've been talking about it, disinformation, propaganda through the media, the social media and everything. And definitely the social media have been extremely successful vector to manipulate the mind of people. And return to the attempt of definition that I gave earlier. Cognitive warfare is about impairing your capabilities to develop a critical mind and to succeed in coming to a logical, well-informed conclusion. Because if you have the wrong information, you're not well informed. So we need to be capable to see how we can defend ourselves. And if there is some young mind that are seeking for postgrad studies and field of research, I encourage you to go into that field, because I think that it is something that will be of great importance. Matter of fact, NATO has now included as a sixth form of warfare, cognitive warfare, after land, sea, air, cyber, space. Now there's a sixth one that is cognitive warfare. So this is how important it is considered by the generals and others. But and we need to be capable, from the academic point of view, we need to be capable to find tools that will be applicable to everybody. Tools that and a way of defending ourselves. Unfortunately, we see those echo chamber being created into the social media, and we lose people that got caught into the web of those echo chambers, and how to be capable to sort of bring the people back when you've got a new orange president in the US that is telling that the mainstream medias are liars and wrong. It's like, and he's not capable to say two sentences without one being a lie. So we've got challenges. We got phenomenal challenges, but awareness. Let's talk about it. Let's exchange about it. Let's use our academic environment when we can to stir idea to things, because security is at the fundamental of our society. We move from a state of nature to a state of law by thinking about those things, and we need to keep our social coherence this way.
Thank you so much, Michel. The audience, we are going to close the session. And if I am tasked to summarize, it is very difficult because Michel actually traversed quite a bit of landscape today. And actually, this is very interesting because he must have provoked many of us today, those who have listened. I have seen at one point some 40 people were listening to your session. So I'm sure we'll get more feedback through the views in our YouTube channel. But I think three key points I would say Michelle has urged us today to think critically. One is the future form of warfare. Actually, it is already happening, but he has very explicitly mentioned is the cognitive warfare, which is about impairing your critical ability to discern truth and false, and that is how damaging your decision making ability. Second thing, I would say that within the whole periphery of foreign interference, C-70, and which is happening now very late, although amongst our allies, Canada is the youngest one, I think, in this area of enacting bills and procedures. But I think the key point, which I understood as a second point, as I'm saying here, is that the missing link, the provinces are not connected with the overall national security infrastructure. And this is something very bizarre because provinces, of course, in the federated way of governance, these are independent, but national security is national security. There is no provinces jurisdiction because it goes beyond provinces. And I think this is a very key area that we have learned from Michelle's discussion today. And thirdly, I would say that this tension between policy and its implementation. Although we have C-70 very quickly passed in both houses of Commons and Senate, but still Michelle has suggested something, and which is, I think, very important with regards to foreign agent registry, this double notification. And at least some of the things, if further can be modified in this bill, I think we would be better secured in the future. So I would leave the audience with these profound thoughts that Michelle really helped us to navigate and to understand. And our YouTube channel will have this session in perpetuity. So feel free to browse. And these are sources of qualitative data. And also, before I leave the audience, Michelle teaches quite regularly. And please follow him. And if you're interested, as he said, young minds, try to get into this area if it interests you, because this is something happening and might happen in the future too. So thank you very much for being with us. And please do subscribe Conflict and Resilience Research Institute's YouTube channel, and you will be notified when we have our next session. And till we meet in next year, 2025, stay well, and thank you very much for being with us in this year. And without your support, we would have not come here. Thank you once again, Michelle. On behalf of the Institute, thank you very much for enlightening us with so many details that many of us would have never imagined that existed. Thank you once again. Bye-bye.
Until next time, inshallah.
Inshallah. Bye-bye.
Merci.